This is Kaiju Show, where we have a healthy obsession with kaiju. I am your co-host, Kent, and with me is your other co-host,
Jason. How's it going? And that was really long.
I was trying to make you sweat. We are back after a few weeks, and we are here to discuss the obligatory post GFEST
29 or GFEST 2024
episode. Yeah. So before we get on with our discussion of this year's GFEST 29, we want to first say that I made an individual segment podcast / video that is going to be separate from this. I highly encourage all of you to check that out if you haven't already done so. It's something that has been weighing heavily on my mind for a while, and it's something I've seen fans similar to myself have gone through, and I think it's incredibly important that everyone sees it and just tries to make the fandom better, to say the least. So please watch or listen to it. Second of all, for those who are not familiar with our GFEST discussion episodes, what we do is obviously we're going to discuss GFEST, and then we're going to be on hiatus again for a little while, not just to sort of recharge ourselves, but also because of some vacations that are coming up as well. So Jason and I decided before we came on here, we will be returning August 24th for the next podcast. So it won't be up for probably a week, like September. We're coming, so it would be available like August 31st, more than likely for all of you to watch and listen, depending upon the format. And we will be, instead of going back to Common Writer, we're still going to put that on hiatus for a little bit. What we're going to discuss in that first episode on the 24th is the Gamma Rebirth miniseries. And then the episode we do after that, a couple weeks from then, we are going to start discussing the Ultraman anime, the 3 seasons involved with that. I think, Jason and I didn't dive in too much about this, but I think we will have 3 podcast episodes devoted to that because there are 3 seasons of that show. And I think, if I remember correctly, each season had like 12 episodes. So I think that's appropriate for each podcast episode, 1 episode for each season. And then once we have concluded the Ultraman anime series, we will discuss the Ultraman Rising movie that came out 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So that probably, and I'm just guessing without really looking at a calendar, and I'm too lazy right now to pull up a calendar. Yeah. I think that's going to take us probably into early mid-November, if I had to guess. And so
I think it's going to be a little bit sooner than that.
It could be. Like I said, I don't have a calendar. So probably no earlier than late October, but probably no later than mid-November. And then after that, then we're going to continue and hopefully conclude the original Kamen Rider series. And we intend on continuing to do the live commentary and discussion like we had prior to 2-3 months ago when we decided to cover some other material. So, Jason, before we also get into the GFEST 29 discussion, is there anything else you need to add?
No, not really. Just make sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're watching us down below this video and smash the like button. That's all I got to say.
Man.
Smash it.
All right. So, GFEST 29. This was our first GFEST since 2022 when we went to GFEST
27. Yeah, 27.
So I wrote him, son of a bitch, in my little video that I just did before doing this. I said it was GFEST 27 of the Godzilla's Revenge 50th anniversary. It's GFEST 26. So I guess maybe, Jason, you could put a graphic up when I say GFEST 27, that video, put actually GFEST 26.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, yeah. I fucked that up. I at least own my mistake.
What else is new?
So, once again, I was kind of anticipating this. This was our 10th GFEST.
Hard to believe, actually.
Yeah. I mean, COVID got in the way, so there were 2 years without GFEST. So
I would say we almost did it straight, but we didn't go to GFEST 28 last year. So that kind of broke it up, kind of ended our streak.
Yeah. So how do we want to approach this? Like, I guess maybe I guess I'll start off by saying, definitely, of course, looking forward to it. My son Lincoln came with us again. That was something I was really excited about because this was his second GFEST. He did enjoy the first one, even though he was not very good in sitting down with some panels. I will say, however, off the bat, for me, this was a GFEST that was not one of my favorites, and it has nothing to do with the panels and stuff, although I have some different issues involving some of the panels and other things that went on with GFEST. But the reason why this wasn't one of my favorite was because Lincoln and we must have contracted some type of mild stomach bug like Thursday night, Friday morning, because he and I really, I mean, for me, from the moment the convention started all the way to even the day we went home on Monday, I was not feeling all that great. And Lincoln, he was not feeling great Friday, but by maybe middle of the day, Saturday, he started doing better. So he went to a couple panels more than he did a couple of years ago, but he still spent quite a bit of time in the room. And then even I spent a fair amount of time in the room. Part of that, though, had to do with the fact, too, that starting Saturday, there weren't as many panels that I was interested in. But there was even a point Saturday night when I was talking with you where I was even thinking I may not even be able to attend the costume parade.
I know. And I know you mentioned this when the two of you arrived. I think it might have been on that day, Monday, the 8th, or one of the days leading up to the event that you were saying, I just hope that I don't get caught with anything and all that. Well, you jinxed yourself.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, look, being sick in general sucks, regardless of whatever it is you catch. One of the things I was concerned about was COVID, because I'm an asthmatic and I've already had COVID once before. And it's just like, oh, dear God, like, please don't let me walk away with COVID. Thankfully, we were some of the fortunate ones that didn't get COVID a couple of years ago. That was the first GFEST coming out of COVID. And like, I don't want to say half, but at least a decent swath of the GFEST attendees caught COVID at that particular GFEST. This GFEST also set a lot of records. There have been differing reports as to numbers. The one I keep seeing the most was 10,000 plus. One I saw 20,000, but it's like, I don't think it was 20,000.
I don't think it would be 20,000. Just, if it was 20,000, you wouldn't even get an inch of walking in.
Well, and because I kept thinking about it too with the 10,000, I'm like, even 10,000 seems like it could be too much.
Yeah.
I do believe, yes, this did set an attendance record, no question.
I would say,
I don't know if it even reached quite 10,000.
Yeah. Out of all of the GFEST that we've been to, yeah, it seemed like there were way more people there compared to any of the other years, especially with, Godzilla Kong, the New Empire, and then you had Godzilla -1 coming out within a few months from each other there. That pretty much kind of helped boost the numbers to it, but we'll have to see whenever we get the official numbers
I would think that the numbers would be out right now because it's been a week. I haven't seen anything official. I know earlier in the week I checked.
Let me check GFEST. Let me check GFAN here.
I'm going to check the GFEST Facebook page, see if anything's posted there.
Because I know that they'll usually have some of that stuff on the GFAN page, because they have a special page dedicated to GFEST and past GFEST. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here at the moment. So probably going to take maybe another week or so to kind of get things start to come in and everything. But yeah, as always, GFEST kind of came and flew by the seat of our pants like it always does, leading up to it. But I would say by mid-Sunday, this past Sunday, as of this recording anyways, I just felt like I just wanted to start heading home myself in that regard. Just encountering a lot of people. I think just encountering a lot of people, even though we didn't really mingle much with some of the people, except between you, me, and Blake, that it just kind of takes the winds out of your sails.
Well, for a while. And here's the thing. I think Lincoln, is definitely an extrovert. I think you and I, I think, are introverts. And one of the things about introverts is that when you're in settings where there's a lot of people and just a lot of talking and what have you, it wears you out. And I mean, I'm not a fan of large crowds to begin with, because in some situations I can get claustrophobic. That's the only time I get claustrophobia, but it's exhausting. Like, it mentally kind of wears you out after a bit. And then speaking of the crowds and everything, with all the panels that we want to go, again, it seems like every time when we do the pre-shows and everything, and it's like, I want to go to this panel. Oh, I want to go to that panel, this panel, so on and so forth. And then once we get to the actual event, pretty much all our plans just goes out the window. Well, pretty much. But then And then before I finish, there were at least a couple of panels that I know both of us definitely wanted to go to. But then you told me, maybe via text in person, that so many people at this panel, is like almost every seat is just taken and all that, or like some of them are starting to flow out the entry or exit way these panel rooms, because just a lot of people there this time around compared to other GFests in the past. Yeah. Here's the thing. Like, I'm not gonna blame like the GFEST committee for the numbers, because who could have anticipated such a large crowd this year? But I will sort of put the onus on them for this, in that they should have known that there would have been at least some sort of uptick in attendance, because I mean, it's you and I have gone to enough GFests over the last 12 years that it's obvious. Every time there was like at least one new Godzilla movie, major Godzilla movie, there was a bigger attendance at the following GFest. If the movie came out like in 2014, when it came out in May, that year's GFest, you saw an uptick in people because of that film. And then with Shin Godzilla, even though that came out, was it October? Yeah, it was October
2016.
October 2016. In 2017, you had a bit of an uptick with that GFest. So, but here's the thing. I will say this. When it came to, there were a few panels that I wanted to go to. that I was not able to go to. Let me try to find them here quickly. One of them on that very first day was the 60th anniversary of Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster. Another one was 50 years of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And then let me find the last one. The last one I think was on a Saturday. Let me see here. It was, I think probably, was it another?
I know we wanted to do the Space Godzilla one.
Yes, Space Godzilla. That was the other one. For some strange reason, those three panels were in
Ballroom A.
Ballroom A. I couldn't remember. Ballroom A, which was the smaller ballroom out of the main ballroom area.
Mm-hmm.
To me, in my experience, even before this, in the previous 9 GFests I had gone to, the anniversary panels, unless it's some really obscure movie like Dogora this year, which was celebrating the 60th anniversary, was in Ballroom A. That at best was maybe half filled.
It was,
but something that's like, but something like a Godzilla movie or something involving a kaiju that's popular, like a Space Godzilla, even Mechagodzilla, Ghidorah, those particular panels should have been moved to BC because the Return of Godzilla 40th, the Mothra versus Godzilla 60th, the Godzilla -1, those were all in Ballroom BC. And even the Final Wars 20th anniversary panel was in Ballroom A. That came pretty close to being full, but I think that was on a Sunday. So with it being on a Sunday, I think that helped prevent it from being overflow. But if that had been on a Saturday or the Friday, that would have overflowed. Mm-hmm. And I think what they needed to do is look at something like this, and it's like, if it's a Godzilla anniversary panel, it needs to be moved into the bigger space.
Yeah, I think the only good thing out of some of these anniversary ones was that the MonsterVerse 10th anniversary was in Ballroom BC, and that was decent. I would say a good portion of the seats.
It was decently attended, but it wasn't full.
I would say it would be more than half at least.
Oh yeah, it was 75, 80, maybe.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Like that.
I would say 70, 75.
But Jeff Horn, who does the in-house channel for GFest and the Film Room, and is also part of the GFest committee, I saw one of his posts. Someone had posted something to the effect of how full it was. And then he responded something to the effect of, yeah, we weren't expecting something like that. And we're going to work with the hotel in the future to try to solve this. Like you and I discussed, not just 2 years ago, but even this year, unless it's costing a lot of money for GFest to rent space, you and I had said that there are some decent size rooms and ballrooms on that same level to where they could have used those spaces.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning about that not only in person when we were there, but also in the pre-show overview of GFest that they could have utilized that Rosemont ballroom, but it seemed like there were some other meetings being held during the time, especially towards the end on Sunday.
On Sunday, yes, but it was empty Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, and then speaking of the overcrowdedness, the really good example was the Kaiju Island thing. The other half of the dealer's room, where it was located in one of the other meeting.
It was on the international level.
Yeah, very
more or less the basement,
the lowest basement there, pretty much right in front of the escalators there, and pretty much you had Bob Eggleton, Matt Frank, and some of the other artists and maybe some other vendors there, you had lines out of the wazoo leading, I would at least say maybe close to the other end of one of the hallways going southward or southbound there. And yeah, and I told you that they should have foreseen this, especially when it comes to some of these well-known artists. Having them in that small amount of space, they should have used or probably gotten the Rosemont, maybe half of the Rosemont ballroom to accommodate the whole line issue.
Well, and I didn't disagree with you, because when I had seen Matt Frank's post as far as where he and others were going to be, I was like, I bet that's kind of where the autograph thing was, at least back in GFEST 27. I don't know if it was that way last year, but I'm like, I bet that's probably where it is. And even I was like, until I see it, I have to verify it. And yeah, I'm like, oh no, like this isn't good, because yeah, like you, I looked at that and I'm like, that's going to be crowded.
Yeah. And then, you know, you had other spaces being filled up, such as the art display, Minia's place, and then maybe a couple others there where you had lines really going past that. You always have to squeeze in every time when you want to enter or exit some of those rooms.
With that particular Kaiju Island space, it wasn't until middle of the day Sunday when there weren't lines anymore, because that one always had a line because it was small. And yeah, the dealer's room, the line got ridiculously long. Like the first day, it went down past the ballrooms, down that main hall, down into kind of the lobby area, and then it hugged the wall, went underneath the main lobby area, went back behind to where there's usually like the sitting area for people to have lunches, went down, and it even curled into where the swimming pool, the old swimming pool, used to be. However, even though that was ridiculously long, the line moved. And part of that was, yeah, I mean, Kaiju World dealer's room, the main dealer's room, is a significantly bigger space. And then you get to a point eventually where there's enough constant flowing of in and out that you can keep the line maintaining. Usually after an hour or so on Friday and potentially Saturday, there gets to be a point where you don't have to wait anywhere near as long in that line. That's been one of the great things about this Hyatt Regency location, is that with the dealer's room, you could, be at the tail end of the line, but you're still not waiting that long unless you're crazy and you're there at like 5 a.m. or whatever. Usually, though, you're probably at the front of the line at that point, but you're flowing in pretty quickly. The Kaiju Island, there was always a damn line there. And I'm hoping they get that fixed, because not just the Rosemont, to be perfectly honest, the Rosemont ballrooms, I think they need to use for panels. There, you could have had maybe half the vendors, let's just say half for sake of argument, half of those Kaiju Island vendors in that space. I don't know what the rooms were. And then move the others either into individual rooms, either further down that hallway in the same hallway Minia's place is, or on the level in which the swimming pool room was, or even the level above that where the autograph rooms were. And some of those rooms were bigger than the, was it 1 or 2 rooms that they stuck Kaiju Island in?
Yeah, you just kind of pretty much said what I was probably going to say as far as suggesting how to go about this. I would totally agree to have the 2 main panel rooms kind of where the Rosemont ballroom is, just kind of split in half, and then you pretty much would have equal amount of space, and then that's kind of where you can do the costume parade right there too, and just mainly have the whole other ballroom where Kaiju World Dealer's Room is at. Just fully expand that to be the entire dealer's room. But I know that you have Dojo Studios kind of stuck in the middle between those two, where the current panel rooms are and the dealer's room. With the amount of space that Dojo Studios has, I honestly think that they didn't really need that amount of space, especially, when you go in there, it just seems like a whole lot of empty space. I mean, granted, you're going to need some space for people to lay their costumes and stuff, but I've seen a couple other ones in the lower level, just right underneath where the old swimming pool was, where they had a cosplay meetup. Just use one of those rooms where you can store the costumes and everything, but then also probably would have to reconfigure, relocate the Dojo Studios right there. Then you're gonna have to sort of accommodate to where, and I know that Dojo Studios will need to have some room to accommodate for what they're doing there. Maybe have it in the lower area, maybe across from the film room, but then you're going to need to relocate the game room and everything, and game tournaments and all that. So there's going to have to be a lot of accommodations moving forward in order to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could handle this. And yes, if anyone from the GFEST committee is listening, this is free advice. And I'm not saying you guys screwed up. All I'm saying is that I think anniversary panels, especially of Godzilla films, should be moved to the larger ballroom. And I think it should have been foreseen to some extent to see a bit of an uptick in traffic.
Especially when you have two movies coming in one after the other.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. But they're moving forward. And granted, here's the thing. I don't think there's anything else major coming up between now and next July. I don't think so.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is the next Godzilla Kong movie, which isn't going to be around till, was it 2027? Early.
Yeah. So I doubt they'll see the same numbers next year. So I can understand perhaps the mindset being of maybe just kind of leaving some things alone. And I don't blame them for initially thinking that. But, like like we were talking about, like the Rosemont ballrooms could be used, as another panel area. Or, although I'm not sure now that I think about it, if this would work considering how lines would work, maybe the Rosemont ballrooms could be a potential space for the dealer's room. My only concern about that, though, is how lines would form there, and you could end up having some real issues with congestion in a couple spots, maybe.
And then I would say is that for that area, it seems to be the Rosemont ballroom. It seems to be a little bit smaller compared to the current size of Kaiju World, or maybe the same.
Really? I thought it was same size, if not bigger.
I would say it would at least be close to the same size, or possibly a bit smaller, because with that whole grand ballroom area where they're at now, you can at least expand that to make it bigger.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just use the Rosemont for ballrooms. Just use the Rosemont ballroom as panel rooms. One of the things I thought was really interesting, though, that despite the enormous attendance this year, the opening ceremonies and the costume parade were not full. Because if I remember, when we went 2 years ago, the first year that the con was at the Hyatt, I could have swore that whole space was mostly, if not entirely full for both of those events.
I would at least say that the costume parade part was at least packed to the gills a couple of years ago. But yeah, I was fairly surprised that the area where Ballroom A is, because they removed the partition to do both the opening ceremony and the costume parade, that even, what is it? I think close to, son of a bitch.
For those listening to the audio thing, a thumbs up graphic came up.
Yeah, at pretty much the very end side of Ballroom A, and then maybe I would say a third of the other section of Ballroom A wasn't completely full.
Yeah, it just surprised me because,
but then you still had people along the the wall, which, why don't you just sit down?
Well, oh well.
I mean, I get you want to be close up to the costumes and stuff, but what's the point?
Yeah, like to some degree, I was. Here's the thing. Look, I've been to enough G-Fests that I kind of know what the opening ceremonies are about and what the costume parade is about. The costume parade has more surprises every year than the opening ceremonies. The opening ceremonies have always been, welcome to G-Fest. Hope you had a great first day. Here are special guests, and they usually will say something about themselves. And then over recent years, they've been giving out some of the awards also during the opening ceremonies, whereas some of our earlier G-Fest we went to, they did those at like a dinner. Because I remember you and I, we paid extra tickets or something like that to go to a dinner. I think it was like on a Sunday. Yeah. And then that's when they handed out like the mango skyscraper and all that.
Yeah. And then as far as the second night, they did a lot of the auctioning and then the drawings and everything too.
They didn't do raffles though.
Yeah, I don't know what that was sort of did raffles, but it was, I think they did it over at the dealer's room, because they always have that G-Fest helping G-Fans helping G-Fans table there in the dealer's room.
But they didn't announce it is the thing, because we didn't go last year, and you would think they would be like, look, we're going to do the raffles, come back at such and such time and we'll announce the winning numbers.
Well, I think I think they did it over at their table once they closed up.
It would be nice to know that, because you bought 2 raffles.
Yeah. I think they did, but I completely forgot about it. But yeah, they used to do all that stuff right before the costume parade. I would say just bring that stuff back again. Maybe at least the first day. Shut the fuck up.
Again, the thumbs up.
Yeah. I would at least do it on either the first night, maybe like the auction stuff, maybe a couple auctions there. And then on the second night, also maybe do the other half of auctions and then do the raffle stuff. Kind of get everyone wild up before the costume parade. Bring that stuff back.
Yeah, because doing the raffles doesn't take that long. It doesn't. It takes no more than a few extra minutes. I don't understand it, because it's not slowing down the costume parade by that much by doing the raffles. All you're doing is saying a couple sets of numbers and then you're moving on. But one of the things I thought was weird too, unless, again, since COVID, things have just been a blur for me. Maybe it's long COVID I got. One of the things that I thought was interesting, there was no in memoriam this year, because usually there's an in memoriam. And I know there was one individual that had passed, and I really thought that maybe that person was going to be honored during the in memoriam. But then again, I don't think that family showed up this year, and as a result, they didn't. But was there really no one?
Especially with Satsuma, that's the apparent.
He did die in this last year.
Let me double check. I swear that he did pass away,
because 2 years ago.
Let me check
they did an in memoriam then, and I was certain once again, because they had done it even back at the Crown all those years that we had gone, And I was astounded that this year they didn't do it.
From our post, our Facebook posts, it was December 6th, so well after last GFEST. So you would think that they would have done something, but I know that they done a panel tributing to Satsuma, but yeah, I know every GFEST, and I think the one 2 years ago, they've always have done
2 years ago they did one.
A memoriam section.
Because Takarada died like that March. And I remember specifically because like you could hear sniffles in the audience during that. I remember that one clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know on the schedule sheet where I think it was that they did the opening ceremonies slot for a couple hours or something of the sort. And then the costume parade was a 3 or so hours that led up to 10 o'clock. And both of them were really short, especially the first night opening ceremonies, which only lasted 30 minutes. So utilize that time. Seriously.
Well, I mean, look, I understand that they had Pickwick movies, I think, still.
Right. But at least try to utilize some of that time.
Well, no, I don't have a problem with that, but it's just the fact that because, again, we didn't go last year, so unless there were major changes, but we had gone every year from 2012 through 2019. Then there were 2 that didn't happen. Then we went the first GFEST coming out of COVID. Like, to me, it just was weird. It just was really weird that there was no in memoriam and stuff like that. And I'm not saying, look, you need to schedule something for an hour or 2. I'm not saying that. I just thought communication was lacking in a couple areas. I mean, did they tell you at the raffle table to come back at such and such a time?
Well, like I said, they probably did, but I completely forgot about it.
Because I just want to say straight up, because you don't know, if they didn't, that needs to be communicated. And I think what they need to do, and I don't recall seeing it in the program, and I'm not saying that it isn't simply because I didn't see it. For the whole raffle thing, what they need to do is have a paragraph or something in there explaining what the raffles are. And then as a result, say, come to this room at such and such a time, and we will announce the winning numbers. It needs to be communicated because, like I said, for many years, it was done before the costume parade, and it didn't take that much longer to do. And I think on some level, too, it could help bring more butts into the seats. Mm-hmm. Because, again, like you and I said, we were just kind of shocked that the opening ceremonies and especially the costume parade, like the costume parade filled maybe 75% of that space. Opening ceremonies was even smaller than that. Mm-hmm. Like opening ceremonies may have been 50% of that space, if not less.
Yeah. In the opening ceremonies, you had the special guests there. You would think a lot of people would be part of that, at least just kind of seeing those special guests in person and then hearing from them for a little bit, because they did talk one by one there. But yeah, I was really surprised by how less people attended the opening ceremonies, and as well as the second night for the costume parade, where a section and a half wasn't quite filled up.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like, why did people not go? I would think a costume parade for sure would, turn out a vast majority of.
And I've heard people leading up to the costume parade that they were talking about the costume parade being kind of the main bread and butter of the convention. Yeah, the main attraction. And I've heard that leading up to it, but I'm not sure.
I would argue
what the deal was.
Out of all the costume parades we've seen, I think the quality of the costumes this year, awesome.
especially towards the end there. Especially
like,
towards the end.
I didn't think there was a bad costume in that whole set. And it just, I just was surprised because I'm like, every year these are getting better. And it's like this year, wow, like you could throw some of these in movies. And
at least this year, you didn't really see much of those inflatable Godzilla 2014.
Thank God.
Yeah, because I think that they finally started to pull the plug on how many.
It took a decade.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, because I remember talking to you about that after the costume parade this year. One of the things that annoyed me the most since 2014 at these GFEST costume parades, and it happened with the kids' costumes, and I can understand it in 2014 and to some extent in 2015, those inflatable Godzilla costumes. Fine. I mean, use it in 2014. The movie came out that year. I get it. 2015, I can understand that there is some, runoff and all that stuff. Fine. But the fact that for years afterwards, we were still seeing a decent amount of those, I'm like, oh my God, like, can we stop with those? Like, try, like, if you want to completely alter one of those, fine. But it was, a lot of them came in just with the same inflatable. And I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, just
not only the inflatable ones, but the Godzilla 64 rubber mask. Like those were around quite a bit too, on display in the costume parade. And I think, yeah, I would say definitely have put their foot down on those.
I don't think they put their foot down. I just think certain things ran their course. Look, like, again, I think if you're a really young kid, it's one thing. But if you're someone like maybe my son's age and older, if you want to use one of those like inflatable Godzilla suits, try to like really change something about it, whether it's the head, the dorsal fins, whatever. Like, retool the darn thing, because there were so many GFEST costume parades there for a number of years where all it was just those inflatable costumes. And I know some people
one after the other.
I'm sure it's funny because some people watching or listening to this are like, oh my gosh, it took up space in these guys' heads for so much to where they didn't sleep. It's like, no, but I got so sick of it.
I mean, it's reasonable. It's reasonable to argue about it. Is like after a while, just seeing them one after the other, it just gets tiring. But then also it just makes people less creative in a way. Whereas
it is
this year, and then 2 years ago, you start to see more of the creative stuff.
Yeah. Like I said, if you have a child that's like 6 or 7 or younger, fine. I don't have a problem with the inflatable, but beyond that, get more creative. Yeah. Do something different with it.
I mean,
if you're going to use it,
it's reasonable to see people just walk around the halls of the convention, just kind of displaying their their pride and stuff in the Godzilla or Monsterverse, wearing either the inflatable Godzilla or the inflatable Kong suit or costume there. But then otherwise, just don't sign up for the costume parade.
Yeah.
Just wearing that is just.
There were a couple that were key locks, and I thought for sure we were going to see them in the costume parade, but they weren't. I'm like, oh, because their costumes were really good, and I was expecting to see them.
Especially seeing the guy in the costume parade dressed up as the key lock.
Yeah, but there were like 4 or 5 other gals that had key lock costumes, and I thought I had seen them earlier, and I'm like, oh, we'll probably see them in the costume parade. Nope, they weren't in it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was strange, because I'm like, oh, those are good costumes.
Yeah, kind of surprised what some of them you'll see around, but then they don't end up in the costume parade. But oh well.
Yeah. I guess we can talk about some of the panels that we went to.
which is far in between.
To be honest, not really. Not really. We'll do dealer's room as like the last thing. As far as like what we got and stuff. I guess I can go first. Like I went to it was one of the first panels on Friday, the first day. I went to the Return of Godzilla 40th anniversary.
Both of us did.
Panel. I thought by and large that was pretty good. It was pretty informative and pretty fun. A good turnout. I think some of the stuff that they brought up as far as its pre-production and what have you, I had learned from other materials that I had read over the years. But I think I walked away with, some new knowledge on that film as well. But
then we kind of had kind of in our inner circle, sort of a controversy within that panel, dealing with one of the panelists there when he talked about Satsuma there, where he did a apparent fake cry for him, and then just sort of got out of it in the blink of an eye, which in that regard, that's sort of a disrespect.
That moment where he mentioned Satsuma's name, did a cry, and I thought it was legitimate because, to me it sounded like an actual cry, which was fine. But then he hopped out of it and said something like moving on or whatever.
And I sort of noticed that right away. And then maybe a few or so seconds later, you came over to my ear and asked me, "Is like, did he just fake cry in that part?"
Well, yeah.
And then I said, just the way it looked like. He just got out of it within a few seconds, or like
I didn't see him do it, but I heard him obviously. But yeah, like. Here's the thing, like the individual was decently autistic, and in my experience, being around those individuals, they sometimes I think don't understand that some of what they say and do can come off wrong. I don't think he meant any harm by it, but yeah, it was disrespectful. And I know it bothered Lincoln because Lincoln kept talking about it. And I said, no, we're not going to say anything because this isn't someone that I think really knew better. And I don't feel like, because I'm not that individual's parent, I'm not related to them or anything like that in any way, shape, or form. I was like, I don't think it's my place for me to really say something about it. But to me, it was deeply unfortunate that that particular moment happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's kind of our inner circle sort of controversy. I'm not sure if anyone outside of us sort of thought about the same.
I'm sure someone did, because I thought I heard like some whispers and maybe some people looking at each other. But I can't attest to that any further.
But anywho, let's sort of get out of that topic and just kind of go back to what we were talking about here.
And so my next panel I was going to go to was 60th anniversary of Ghidorah and the Three-Headed Monster, but I couldn't go to it because the damn thing was not just standing room only, it was hallway standing room only. And just that disappointed me because anyone who has listened to this podcast over the years knows I love the anniversary panels. Like, those are my favorite types of panels at GFEST. Those are my favorite types of things to do at GFEST, is go to those anniversary panels, because I love learning about the history behind some of the movies, pre-production and then actual production and then release and the reception and all that stuff. I have yet to go to Kaiju United yet to see the recordings of those panels. Thank God. somebody like Kaiju United came along this year and decided to record the panels, because otherwise I would not get a chance to watch it. In fact, I kind of forgot Kaiju United this week recorded those, because that was one of the things I was planning on doing this week, was to go back and watch those panels. I have yet to do that. Now that I remember, I need to make sure I do that. But yeah, like I was deeply disappointed I couldn't go to that. And there will be a couple others that'll come up in conversation here that I couldn't get a chance to go to, because, damn it, too many of you went. Stop it.
But fortunately enough, after that, I did go see the 60 year of Dagora panel.
I was there with you. Yep.
Yeah.
We missed a little bit of the beginning of that, though, because I think we went to the dealer's room for a short bit. I think we missed the first, 15 minutes like that.
I think I did go to the dealer's room first, and you and then I don't know if Lincoln was with you at the time. You guys stayed for a little bit while I went, and then you guys came shortly after.
As far as what I did see out of that Dagora panel, it was fine. Mm-hmm. I can't attest to what information was shared as far as like pre-production and all that stuff. It was interesting to see the different iterations of Dagora, from like video games, trading cards, and TV shows and all that stuff.
I would say that, and then how the materials were made for Dagora there, and some of the behind the scene photos, and then maybe a short video too there. But yeah, some of the iterations and evolutions of Dagora leading up to it, and I think Dagora was kind of on the top of their minds, dating all the way back. I think to either the first or second Godzilla film.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wish I could have seen the beginning of it. But from my understanding, though, I don't think as much was shared on like kind of the whole development of the movie as I had hoped there would be. Maybe there just isn't enough material on it. If that's the case, then, I'm not going to hold that against the panelists. But yeah, I mean, it was fine. It was fine.
It was fine. It was fine.
it was fine. Shut up. It was fine.
I'm just poking fun with you here.
Yeah. It's fucking fine.
Yeah. And then after that, I know pretty much the only one that I can see blurred out in front of my face here is the 50 years of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Again, another filled up room that both of us wanted to go see. And then I'm not sure what else we did at that time. I think I just you actually tried to go to that room, but then you texted me how that sucker was filled up to the brim as well. And I think I was at the dealer's room at that time too. So that was like, why even bother trying to go back? So I'll just sort of rummage around the dealer's room at that point too. But then I think we did manage to go to Godzilla -1 for a bit, or maybe for the entire thing.
I was there up until they started doing audience questions, because for me personally, anyways, once you start getting to audience questions, there's not much you're going to learn after that, because I'm sorry, some of the questions audience members ask in some of these panels, and again, I've been to enough of these that I kind of know what's coming. It's just like, oh dear God, like, let's leave. Some of the questions are not going to pertain to the subject at hand. Other questions are people who think they're funny but aren't. Whatever. But you want to know why we were able to go to Godzilla -1, that panel?
Not a whole lot of, well, it was in Ballroom BC at that time.
That's it. That's the reason. That's the answer. It was in Ballroom BC. That's why we were able to go.
Well, and I think that whole entire ballroom was packed. And I think that was one of the panel rooms where I was just standing in one of the corners.
I think we both were standing in the back with that one.
I think so. Yeah. And then of course you get kind of their opinions and review and whatnot. And then after that, I am in my experience with day one, I don't think didn't really go to much of.
We didn't go to any other panels.
I wish
that's one.
I wish now that I'm seeing it, I wish I would have gone to the Space Monster Juan Magrui panel that they had there from 4 to 5:30. That one seems to be a little bit long there. But yeah, I think after that, we just sort of went to the dealer's room for a bit and then just kind of went back upstairs or whatever we did until the opening ceremonies, which lasted for 30 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, well. So then we slept. At least you guys did. I didn't. That was another thing about this GFEST that sucked. Other than Lincoln and I getting a mild stomach bug, I slept like.
Wasn't this the same night where fireworks were going on? I could have sworn. Cause
it was either Friday or Saturday, but you know what? Fuck those guys that shot off fireworks. I had just lied down. I had put my head on the pillow. My finger was on the light switch to turn it off. And then boom, boom, what the hell? Like yeah, and it lasted for like 20.
Yeah, that's the
minutes.
That's the Rosemont Entertainment District for you. Where they
and I thought to myself,
weekend.
Like, you know, when it was at the Crown, yeah, we experienced that periodically. But I'm old now, people. Like, I try to go to bed at a more reasonable time. Be respectful of your elders.
Damn you, clouds.
Get off my lawn. But part of it, though, too, was that by that point in the week, because you're talking like Friday night or Saturday night, I was beyond bushed because I had gotten there Monday. And just for whatever reason, other than Sunday night, in which I actually kind of slept decently for the first time that whole week, like I remember waking up to you almost every day, like, and basically telling you, like, one of the first things I said was like, I slept like garbage. Like it was usually one of the first things I would say to you.
I slept like shit.
I slept like shit. Like, it just, I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know if it was just being in a different bed. But see, the thing was that in years past, yeah, maybe the first night or two I had some difficulties, but then I usually got used to it and was fine. This year, like, it was not to be in terms of like getting some decent rest that whole stay. I just I'm still, no joke, and trying to recover from that. I can't.
Yeah,
I fucking can't do it.
Yeah, I think recently I'm sort of been not having good enough sleep recently, but I think since propping up my head a little bit when I sleep, I think it's gotten to be a bit better.
But see, I've always slept with two pillows. That's the thing. I've always slept with two pillows.
For me, I slept with one pillow because my pillows are pretty thick and kind of have this. I forget sort of things that they have with it, but it just. I managed to sleep with one pillow over the years, but for some reason, the last couple or so years, especially this year, having a little bit difficulty sleeping. But then I've got this little triangular type of thing um, upstairs in my bedroom, where whenever I have difficulty sleeping, I just put that underneath my pillow to kind of prop up my head a little bit, and I just fall asleep pretty quickly. So I just kind of made do with a couple pillows here and there to kind of prop up my head, and zonked out after a little bit.
By the way, one quick side note I want to talk about before we forget. It was we went to Dave and Buster's like Thursday. They had the Godzilla virtual reality game.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever seen that and experienced it.
Same here. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. If you have never played that, you need to find that machine somewhere, Dave and Buster's or where there's an arcade or whatever. Play that sucker. That thing is the greatest VR experience I have ever had.
I know.
And I was blown away. Like the graphics remind me of like GameCube, Xbox One type of graphics, like pretty good. Mm-hmm. But like the experience with like the wind blowing in your face and how it like made you think you were free falling for like half a second and boom, boom, like you're going, oh my gosh, it was amazing.
I know the Dave and Buster's down in Des Moines here. I think I might have told you that they either had the Godzilla VR or the King Kong one, either one of those two, but never got to experience it. Then when I went to go see -1 at the mall there where Dave and Buster's is located. But yeah, the VR that we got to experience over there in Chicago, yeah, it was really good. And he had at least one of the representatives, I think on the first day of GFEST over there, handing out all the Dave and Buster little cards with the QR code and everything where you can get a discount, and has the Godzilla VR experience logo on there, which was pretty sweet.
Yeah. So nice little side note.
Yeah.
Okay.
So day 2.
So I went to the Godzilla versus Mothra versus Godzilla anniversary panel. Another good one. I thought that one was pretty darn good, fun, informative, a nice way to celebrate, in my opinion, one of the not just great Showa Godzilla films, but one of the better Godzilla films.
Yeah, I think
as well. I liked it.
I think I might have been there for a little bit.
You were there for like a few minutes and left.
Yeah, for a little bit. And I think I might have went over to the Ultraman one for a little bit just to kind of see what they were talking about over there. And I think there isn't really much interesting over there. But I think at that point, I just went into the dealer's room, kind of sort of the first thing there after I left.
One of the panels I know I'm getting ahead of myself here by just a little bit. One of the things I regret not going to was the Jeffrey Angles interview, because I had looked at that name and I'm like, it looks familiar, but I didn't bother to look it up because I was lazy. And come to find out, like when we're at GFEST during the opening ceremonies, yeah, he was the guy who translated. He was the guy who translated and put together the novelizations of Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again. This came out early last year, I think, if I remember. He's working currently, and I remember reading about this before this GFEST, that he's putting together the Mothra novelization as we speak. So that's something to look forward to. And I remember telling you, because when I got this book like a year and a half ago, and I saw that he is a professor at Western Michigan, which is like no more than an hour and a half away from where I am. I was like, got to get him as a guest on here at some point. And they, at the opening ceremonies, named a couple of the classes that he teaches over there. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I wish I had those when I was in college. Like I would have. And I don't remember if I ever said this on the podcast before, but I have daydreamed before as far as like, if I were a professor at a university and doing like a kaiju type of course or courses, what would I discuss? And I always have fun with that. So that's one panel I wish I would have, but that's one thing I want us to work on in the next year or two, is to try to get him to come onto the podcast here.
Mm-hmm. And then I think after that, I maybe went in a little bit for the Space Godzilla behind the scenes panel that they had over there. But I think at that time it was around noon. So went there for a little bit and just did lunch for that. And then after that, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of the other panels that look familiar in my eyes.
I will say I tried doing the Space Godzilla, but again, it was not to be. Yeah. I wanted to also do Billy DuBose's Godzilla Battle Royale because I knew he was giving away or selling some Blu-rays of his film. And I've always wanted one of those. And I didn't go to it. And I saw people in the hallways with them. And I'm like, God damn it, I missed it. So one of these days, Billy, if you listen or follow this, I am going to hit you up via Messenger in Facebook and ask you about a copy of your film.
The one thing that I do remember going to was the Alan Henry interview panel.
I wish I would have gone to that too.
I went into that one, and I think I was in there for a good portion of it. Yeah, I think I was in there all the way up to when they were asking questions there, and that was kind of it for me. But yeah, a lot of interesting stories that he had and sort of behind the scenes and how they kind of put everything together, especially the things leading up to the whole Suko being used as a weapon there. And they did at least a couple takes and showed him to Wingars like, why not? It's like, what's wrong with the first one? And the first one was the Suko was the weapon one.
I didn't get a chance because I haven't done autographs in a while at these GFEST. Alan Henry, in my observations of him at this year's GFEST, looked like he was one cool dude, like really nice and just really cool. And I regret not going to that panel and not taking an opportunity to at least try to talk to him at some point.
And for those of you that don't know who Alan Henry is, he's the one that portrays Khan in both GVK and GXK.
Yeah. And let's see here. I don't know. I didn't do drawing monsters with Matt and Hiroshi this year because when I went 2 years ago, the darn thing was so packed, I was claustrophobic.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to do the Kaiju Kingdom podcast where they were talking about Godzilla and Kong creators, but then I don't know. I didn't think it was going to be exactly what I thought it was going to be, so I didn't bother.
Yeah, I think that one they were talking about the with the guys who were doing the DC comics with Godzilla and Kong.
Okay.
But then, yeah, other than that, after the Alan Henry one for me, I just kind of rummaged around randomly around the convention, going to dealer's room.
Jason was like one of those people you see in a hospital with a gown and just wandering.
Maybe went to a dealer's room for a bit, down the film room, and then to the game room just to kind of look at what's going on over there. But yeah, that was kind of it for me. Leading up to the costume parade.
Mm-hmm. All right. So do we want to do the third and final day?
Yeah, I think with this one, it's just mainly going to the dealer's room for the last final time. But then I do remember one of the very first ones here cropping up. Well, I did go. The very first one was go to the bottle display room there before everyone grabbed and left. And then went into the art display room, just kind of look at some of that stuff for a bit until the soft final toys or Sophie 101 panel, which I stayed for quite a bit. I don't think I left maybe at a decent time when they were still in the middle of it, but they were kind of going through the history of Sophie and how it came to be and all that stuff. So it was pretty informative there, and just kind of showing the process on how they were making Sophie. The guy that was doing the panel was, I think he co-founded the Seismic Toys company there that also makes Sophie, and they got their own little vendor spot in the dealer's room there. But yeah, it was pretty informative.
Yeah, Sunday, I mean, not only were there just not a whole lot of panels that interested me, I ended up not going to quite a few panels that I did want to go to, just because like Saturday and Sunday was kind of when my stomach bug was hitting me the worst. And I spent a large chunk of that day just up in the room because one of the panels I wanted to go to was when Dinosaur Comics ruled the Earth. Couldn't go to it. I was decent enough to go to the Monsterverse 10 years later panel, or probably should have been more appropriately titled something to the effect of like why we hate the Monsterverse 10 years later still. Oh dear God. Like, this was the panel I have least liked the most since 2018's Pacific Rim Uprising panel. Dear God, like, Ramon Flores was really kind of the only one that was kind of cheerleading the thing. And I'm not saying you have to cheerlead, all these panels. Like, you don't always need to be someone that is like, rah, 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 Mothra versus Godzilla, rah, 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 Godzilla versus, I'm not saying that, at least try to be like, talk about the good and the bad. But there have been some of these panels over the years. Granted, thankfully, they've been few and far between, where some of them are just shitting all over whatever the topic is. This was kind of one of those. And I'm all fine with that, but there just weren't enough voices. There were 4 people on the panel. One was a fan. 2 of them deeply disliked, if not hated, the Monsterverse. And another one, I would argue, was probably more in the camp of being a bit more negative about it, but not as much as the other 2. And again, I talked about in my little segment here that we recorded before doing this GFEST episode, I have seen a lot of fans, and more specifically older fans, attacking and claiming anyways that there are these younger fans out there saying the Monsterverse is the greatest Godzilla series ever, or something to that effect. In my experience, those people barely are around. Like, I've only seen, I think, 2 of them ever. And a lot of them tend to trend pretty young. And so it's like, okay, you have to understand that these kids, these younger fans like you, probably growing up when the Showa era movies were going on, are going to gravitate towards these films because these are the movies that are coming out when they're growing up. These are the movies that they have easy access to. So yeah, they probably will think that. Instead, these older fans tend to shit on these younger fans that are claiming that the MonsterVerse is one of the greatest things ever. And it's like, you do realize that some of you that are bitching and moaning about the MonsterVerse are huge fans of the Showa films, and that much of the MonsterVerse films over the last 3 out of the 5 films have become very Showa era like, right? Because you do realize that if you were to compare these 5 MonsterVerse films to the first 5 Showa era films, the trajectory in tone that the MonsterVerse films have taken is exactly the same as the trajectory of tone that the Showa era films took, right? Like they went from being pretty serious, and having something to say to being absurd entertainment, which is fine. Like I said, when we covered New Empire 2-3 months ago, I said I came to peace several years ago that that's where the MonsterVerse was going. And one of the reasons why I love New Empire is that it is nothing but good fun. And these older fans are shitting on these younger fans. It's like, look, you people are supposed to be okay with it. I'm not saying you have to like the films. That's not what I'm saying. But I would think you at least would appreciate the films for creating new Godzilla fans, and that you would be mature enough and not dicks to these younger fans and be like, look, there are some of these older films out there. This is where you can find them. And this is what some of the films are about. And instead, most of these older fans are doing nothing but making fun, cracking jokes at these younger kids and at these movies. They're being assholes, and they're not helping the situation. And I just have to say, fuck you to those people that are doing that, because what you're doing is you're harming these younger fans. And it's part of the reason why I just ultimately said I am done with this fandom, because I'm tired of people being dicks for really petty, stupid reasons. And I have seen some of these younger fans give up. And I got a son who's 9 and is a huge fan. I worry about what his experience is going to be once we allow him to start using the internet more and doing all that. And this panel on some level was indicative of that. It wasn't as harsh as some of the examples I gave, but it was enough to where I realized the MonsterVerse needs to have appreciation, even if you don't care for the films, because they are creating new fans. Toho doesn't seem to have a problem with it, because you know what? If they did, they would have said, you know what? We're going to take that Godzilla license back. Yeah, it's money. But you know what? The 98 film made a lot of money. And you know what Toho did? They're like, yeah, we would prefer you not do it. And I think, though, they didn't pull the license on that because they had a contract, but they just decided we would prefer you didn't. And so, but Toho has had no issues with the MonsterVerse. You know, they're even selling licenses to Mothra again for the New Empire because they tried some different kaiju and it didn't work. And so Legendary, hey, can we use the Mothra license again? Yeah, sure. Yeah, they paid money, but still, it's, you know how protective Toho is of this property. And this
I think a lot of people just don't quite understand that.
Right. Well, again, it goes to that whole hypocrisy thing that I have about this fandom at large, is that there are a lot of people who are just not self-aware. They just aren't. And they don't understand how harmful their words and actions are, not just to these younger fans that we need to have, but to the fandom itself at large. And this panel, I'm not saying you had to love it and cheerlead and all that, but you need to at least appreciate what they were doing. And that was trying to not only do something a little bit different, but bringing in some new kaiju and creating, I think more importantly, new Godzilla fans. And Scrooge Jones had a moment where he defended the 98 film, which I applauded. But otherwise, most of this panel was just about shitting over the MonsterVerse. And look, I'm going to say this, and I don't care if anyone disagrees with it or not. I think the MonsterVerse films are just as good, if not better, than a lot of what Toho has produced. So deal with it.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing when it comes to these panels is that I know it's probably not going to happen or anything, but I think just try to be more or less trying to make sure it's a bit more neutral and try to get both sides
right
to everything. Just kind of maybe do a little bit of gatekeeping, so to speak.
The one time where gatekeeping should be useful.
Well, try not to let both like overall good or overall bad atmosphere or anything. Just maybe try to have things a bit more neutral in that regard and say, yeah, I know everyone's got their opinions and all that stuff, but here's mine. But I mean, here's good things what I like about it. Here's some bad things what I don't like about it, but then just try to be more or less neutral on these panels instead of just shedding on things, because then you're going to have, I mean, there was a lot of first timers at this year's GFEST. I mean, you're going to have a lot of first timers recently due to the MonsterVerse. And then here they are coming to their very first GFEST. And then all they hear is a lot of shitting on the MonsterVerse and everything. It's not going to, it's making them kind of giving them that expression is that maybe not return next year or in the future and all that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the very few times I have been proud of this fandom happened during this panel in which a majority of the crowd on a couple of occasions got vocal against those that really started taking the negativity too far. And, basically we're like, no, like this franchise, the MonsterVerse, is nowhere near as bad as what you're claiming it is. Is it perfect? No, but it's not as awful as you're claiming it is. And yeah, I mean, in 2014, because I remember you and I were saying that was the worst GFEST experience we ever had, because all of the 2014 panels involving Godzilla 2014 were by and large negative. And Bob Eggleton, I think out of the three of them that happened that year, Bob Eggleton was on 2 out of 3 of them. And he, on the 2 panels he was on, was the only voice that defended the film. All the other voices on those 2 panels, and then even on that third one, the one in which he wasn't on, just shat on the film. And then, of course, it happened again with Pacific Rim Uprising in 2018 on that panel. And yeah, I mean, I've been saying for years, since the 2014 GFEST, like, yeah, here's the thing. We go to these conventions because we love the subject or subjects that are being headlined. You go to Comic-Con because of Marvel, DC. Now it's turned into other things for like movies and some other products. When you have panels, I don't think a panel, like you said, should be all one or the other. But if it's going to be one thing, yeah, I would rather have it be more positive than negative. I don't think any panel should be totally negative or even a majority negative. I don't, because what's the point then of the convention itself? I think it totally undermines what the convention is about when you claim that it's about, like GFEST, celebrating Godzilla and the kaiju films that this convention claims it celebrates. And I'm not saying everyone has to like this stuff. I'm not saying that. But when you put a panel together, at the absolute bare minimum, you need to have one person that likes it and another person that doesn't.
And then maybe and then one that's
have an enlightened discussion.
And maybe another one that's sort of in the middle.
maybe, yeah, or like that, but like the rah panels don't wear me out because it's like, yeah, we come here because we love this stuff. Like if I was middle of the road about it, why would I go to begin with? But it's the panels that just crap all over. It's just like, why? Like it's one thing if you were if you were one voice that was like, okay, I don't care for it, and this is why. But then where's the equal voice or equal number of voices that tried to defend it?
Yeah. And I know
it hasn't happened.
And I know we're going a little bit long on this part because I think we need to kind of get elsewhere.
Right.
I'm going to finish up my piece on it, to kind of round things out, is that whoever at least sort of comes up with some of these panels, if it's someone that overall does it, is just going to shit on that particular thing, to me, I'm just going to ask that particular person, what's even the point of doing the panel and just literally shitting on it when you can just say absolutely nothing about it, not having to deal with it. All you're doing is just bringing up all the crap that you don't really want to do to begin with. In that regard, just completely ignore it, let someone else do it.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm kind of in agreement with you. But I understand that, like, a lot of people would hate that because they're like, oh, it's a litmus test and I want to be a part of the panel. But yeah, I do think the individual in charge of putting all that together probably does need to ask the question of like, okay, you're doing something like this, which is going to be very, very opinionated, and not so much educational, so to speak. What's your format? Like we can't have you be totally negative on it. And if you are, then you either need to not do it at all, the panel, or you need to try to have someone leave or some individuals leave to try to even out the responses, or you need to add enough people to try to even it out. Because we're here to celebrate, and it's fine if you don't like it, but we need to at least try to have equal voicing, because I think the responsibility to the individual in charge of this needs to be the fandom at large, the attendees, and not really to the individuals that are requesting to do the panel. I understand it may be tedious, and I can understand definitely some issues it might pose because, it's not fair. Why? I guarantee you there are a bunch of people out there that want to do panels and are probably being turned away because they probably were too late in submitting their requests, probably, or what have you.
Right.
It's the negative panels, the majority negative panels that have always gotten me at this convention, because it's just like, why bother? And like you and I remember we just kind of walked out, but moving on, we went to the Final Wars panel. You really didn't stay.
I was there maybe for 10 minutes at max.
Yeah. And I stayed for roughly 20 to 30 minutes, anywhere from like 40 to 50% of the length of the panel. And I walked out once the whole thing came up about a voice recording someone has kept all these years, in an interview with Ryuhei Kitamura, the director of the film, where he was like, it wasn't mandated by Toho, but I wanted our Godzilla, the Japanese Godzilla, to kick the shit out of the American Godzilla. And because of all the awful experiences I had about overhearing people and seeing posts and all that stuff about the American Godzilla film, which is 26 damn years old at this point, Just people being petty, not getting over it, being man babies about it. At that point, I stood up and I walked out. And Billy DeBose was on that panel. Billy was not responsible for this. I hated walking out on him because I like Billy. But I had enough. I had more than enough at that point. I'm like, you people that are still on this high, little more than 2.5 decades later, get over it, you stupid, pathetic fucks. Like, it's a damn movie. Just get over it. It's a damn movie. It's just a movie. And so many of you are losing sleep over it. Just get over it.
But other than that, I think that was essentially the last panel that I went to. And then after that, just kind of went to the dealer's room for one last time, and then the game room. And then I think I just caught up with you guys to the final film in the film room to kind of pretty much close things out at 5:00, which the final showing was Gamma versus Gauss.
Yep.
Yep. So
that's like Lincoln's favorite space.
Yeah. And I can tell. But other than that, just kind of want to dive into maybe a little things of what we acquired in the dealer's room.
Well, I got a shirt and Lincoln a shirt similar to what Jason's wearing there. I got a couple other shirts. Kamen Rider John Bellatti's Ultraman shirt, and then I ended up getting the remaining Gamma Rebirth roster of monsters. I got a Gorgo Legacy figure set from Titanic Creations. And then, I got a Kamen Rider figure and then an Ultraman anime figure. Lincoln walked out with a bunch of Gamma Rebirth toys, some Godzilla stuff, a couple of T-shirts from Aardvark Tees as well. I had to buy a Godzilla sweatshirt because ballrooms A, B, and C are incredibly chilly.
Well, it's not just that, but the hallway was friggin' cold.
Yeah, so I had to buy a sweatshirt out of necessity. So that's more or less was kind of my haul for the year.
But I know you picked up at least a couple of shirts over at Hot Topic unrelated to the whole convention.
Well, yeah,
but they had a section.
This was one of them.
But they had a section of Godzilla T-shirts there, and I'll kind of show one of them that's over here. But you're pretty much caught up with all the stuff that you got.
Yeah, it's just.
But I got most of my things right here just to kind of show you here. But I just kind of want to start out with at least a couple of the movies I have acquired. One is the Gamma Rebirth, and then the Space Monster Juan Magui there. Unfortunately, they didn't, a vendor over there, DVD World, they didn't have the Blu-ray version of the Juan Magui one, but decided to pick that up because I know we've talked about at least trying to do that movie here down the road.
We should try to do that before the end of the year, maybe, even if we don't get Kamen Rider done. Like, have it as like a year-end like fun thing. Yeah,
and I know, but I didn't acquire this one from the dealer's room, but this is the one that Kent gave me. You had the extra copy, so I
had an extra copy. Yeah.
So he just gave that to me, and then besides getting the GFEST shirt here, I've got the shot glass too, because whenever I go on to trips, I always like to try to get a shot glass as a little memento. So after
tell them the truth, you are a heavy drinker.
Not really anymore. Although I did have a little bit of drinks here, kind of ruining my whole streak. Although that kind of got ruined a month beforehand, but otherwise,
tomorrow's a new day.
with it being our 10th GFEST, I thought it'd be kind of a nice way to kind of get a little memento on that part. And then here's some of the shirts. Let me grab them here. The first one is unrelated to grabbing at the event, but this is
another one that I grabbed.
Yeah, one of them from Hot Topic is the Kaiser Ghidorah, and it has kind of a little comic strip.
They all do.
There.
See?
Yeah.
They even had a Godzilla and Kiyu ones that had comic strips on the back too.
Yeah, I think a majority of these shirts, actually, about half of them were non-GFEST purchases. Like this one here is from Kaiju number 8, which is based on a manga and anime type of thing. So that was kind of pretty cool to see some of that stuff there.
My Hot Topic, by the way, we were there the other day, the kids and I were. My Hot Topic has a couple different Kaiju, or should I say Godzilla shirt designs that the Hot Topic there that we went to did have.
Yeah. And then here's another Kaiju number 8. Kind of has a little shine effect to it there, which is kind of neat. There. And then the last shirt, I was fairly surprised I'd never had it for many years.
I know. Jeez.
But then finally got it. It's the posterized shirt of Godzilla versus Space Godzilla.
Welcome to being a Godzilla fan, Jason. It took you.
Well, I know I've got like the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, the orange shirt, where you see me wear that from time to time during our recordings or live streams. And then the Godzilla. I
don't know why I've never won. I've always wondered, like, why orange? Why did they print that in black on orange? I've never figured that out.
Yeah, it was just pretty much a monochrome version of the poster. Yeah, and I'm sort of with you. That seems to be the only one out of all the posterized shirts here. Even like the original 54 and the Godzilla Raids Again one, they were all full colored and everything. Pretty much a majority of these posterized shirts were full colored. Only the King Ghidorah 91 one is just monochrome black, just on an orange shirt.
And why orange?
And
like, why not multicolored or something?
I would like to know the decision on just only that posterized shirt being that way as it is.
It's just weird. I just always thought it was strange.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it of the shirt ones. Let me grab all the figures and stuff that I got here. Still got them in the bags. I haven't unwrapped most of these here since wrapping them up. I think, what's this first one here? I think, okay, here we go. Is the first one here is the anime Gamera from Gamera Reaper. Right there.
Fantastic Gamera.
Yeah. And then I think this one is one of the common writers. Jeez Louise. Oh, they gave me a free pen. Didn't even realize that. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. This one is the Kaiju number 8 figurine.
Oh, I did get it. I got one of those and also a Daimajin Bandai.
Oh, good.
I forgot about those.
But yeah, for some reason, I got a free pen from the vendor here. I didn't realize that. And I did too. Yeah, I think. Okay, here we go. So here's the Shin Kamen Rider figure there.
We still got to watch that movie.
Yeah, and then the anime Ultraman figurine there. So that's pretty much it from this whole bag. Try to get these all back in here, as well as Well, I probably shouldn't put the pin there.
Are you going to show anything else?
Oh yeah, I've got plenty here.
Should you tell everyone how much money you took?
I took 1,500. Originally, it was going to be 4,000.
Oh my God, that's even. Oh dear God, I was going to take 4,000,
but
were you going to buy the invention?
Maybe. Finally got the Godzilla -1 figure here. Kind of put it on the back display. Well, most of these are going to be in the back display here. And then
you should get the Godzilla the Ride one. It's pretty cool.
Thought about it. But here's one of the Sophobie. This one's a Baragon one.
Baragon.
Let's see, which one is this? Maru-san Baragon here. We got that one. And put these back.
I have a Maru-san G98. It's one of my prized possessions. Yeah, I still have Godzilla 98. Deal with it.
I sort of regret not getting one of those two Last Dinosaur T-Rexes.
Yep.
I wish I would have gotten those. I
was trying to tell you. I'm like, dude.
The next time we go, which is in maybe 2 or 3 years from now, I'm going to need to write myself a note to the very first thing I need to focus on is getting the Sophobie Last Dinosaur T-Rex. But the next one here, I had to get it, is the Daimajin Sophobie here. And this one is also Maru-san one here.
Looks like a clown almost.
A little bit. It's a little bit weird how the one arm there is kind of in a weird position over there, and then the other one is just kind of straight like that. And then the next one here is a Bullmark Anguirus. They're kind of a reddish orange gold looking one, which is pretty cool in a way. So that's it for this bag. All the figurines. And then I've got one more bag, and I think that should be it of all the haul that I've got. All right. Last final bag. First one up is a Bullmark Megalon.
Wake up, Megalon.
Pretty cool, and it's right. And then the next one here. Oh, this one. I think out of all the hauls that I've showcased here, this one is probably the most expensive one. The Hedorah. This one is from, the way it looks is a Maru-san Hedorah. Kind of this pinkish gold looking Hedorah. Pretty sweet. Very large too. Let me put you back in there. And then I think this is I've got a couple actually. The next one here, this one was a pretty cool one. The Reptilogus Sophobie there. They had a few different color variant colors of Reptilogus, but this one I think sort of fits the bill with that emerald green painting to it. Kind of really matches the look of Reptilogus.
I like Reptilogus the monster, but the movie is mediocre.
Yeah. And I'm trying to set him up right now, but he really kind of wants to tip over. I'm going to have to do something about that.
I may have to help part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep. This is the final haul from the dealer's room. Is the Bullmark King Ghidorah. I think this is
It's
supposed to be
almost inspired by the original Rainbow Wings.
that's why I think it is, because I think he was supposed to be mainly blue with kind of the gold and red wings, according to the original posters that they had of King Ghidorah. That's why I think that's sort of their inspirations for it. But yeah, that's pretty much all my haul. There's kind of a little bit of shirts, which I wasn't really expecting to buy at all this year,
yeah.
but somehow managed or get pulled right into getting a few more shirts. But the majority of it is mainly focusing on the Sofa Bee, which I would say mission accomplished.
All right. Well, with all that, let's just kind of give some final thoughts on this year's GFEST.
Yeah, as far as the final overview of GFEST 29, it was pretty crowded. In that regard, I would say
one word to describe this year's GFEST: crowded. That's pretty apt.
I think it was sort of that way throughout the entire convention. It was pretty crowded, and even when
you could tell, like, it had dwindled quite a bit.
Yeah, but it was still crowded nonetheless. Yeah. But I would say maybe by noon it started to fade. But when we went downstairs on Friday, the very first day of GFEST, we were having a breakfast over at Perks, kind of that little convenience store in the hotel there. And I just I said, you know what, I'm going to take a look at the line to see how that looks. And holy shit, as soon as I walked around the corner there was already a line right up to that corner as soon as you walk to the main hallway leading into the main panel, Dojo Studios, and the dealer's room there. It was ridiculous just seeing it. It's like even 2 years ago when I managed to get right up being near the front of the dealer's room line before it opened on the first day, I don't ever remember a time where it was that packed, that line being backed up all the way during that time. But I would say, besides all that, I would say this convention would be in the middle of the road, maybe sort of below average in that regard, just with, and I know we talked about it here previously with some of the panels there and some of the little inner circle controversies with certain panels here. But there are some good things that came out of it with the costume parade. We've seen a lot of really good costumes, and thank God no inflatable Godzilla costumes from the 2014 movie.
There were like one or two, but that was it.
And then just having fun, seeing you there, and as well as Lincoln there, just having fun, outside of the convention for the entire week there, going to,
and a little inside joke that we developed several days before. I'm not going to share it now, but maybe
I would say out of all the 10 GFests, and I know we've talked about our certain little themes during those certain years and stuff, I would say this year's theme was probably top notch. That was probably,
and it was random. It just kind of showed up, and
probably one of the best random themes that we've come up with. But other than that, it was went to Dave & Buster's, got to experience finally the Godzilla VR video game over there, which was pretty cool. But yeah, just at least having a good time outside of GFEST there for a week, and then it was kind of an okay GFEST with certain things being like, God, not this again. But then also coming out with some of the good things there. If I would have to rank 29 out of all the other 10 GFEST that we've gone to, I probably would say maybe place it in the 6th or 7th spot.
Yeah. I would have to take a little bit of time to go down the memory hole, look at photos and videos of previous GFEST to really get a better idea as far as what my experiences were with the previous 9, and then kind of reorder them appropriately. But I feel relatively confident enough to say that if I were to do that, and this is unofficial for me, that if I were to rank this one amongst the previous 9, I probably would put it right around where you put it. I'm not going to hold against it the fact that I got a stomach bug, like right as the convention started, but it did damper some of the fun a little bit because when you're sick, but again, I'm not going to hold that against the convention, but it did force me to miss a little bit more of it than I was anticipating. The huge crowds, damn. I mean, on the one hand, it was nice to see that Godzilla is resonating more and more with people. And you have the MonsterVerse haters to thank for that. And yes, I understand -1 was part of it, but MonsterVerse is more prevalent right now. Like, it was fine. I was deeply disappointed to not get into those 3 panels that we had discussed earlier, the Space Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla anniversary ones. I still think some of the issues with those could have been prevented had those been moved to Ballroom BC. I think if those had been moved to Ballroom BC, yeah, there's still the chance it could have been standing room only, but it would not be the problem that it was that Ballroom A creates when it starts getting full. So I'm hoping a lesson is learned from that. It's unfortunate that it had to be at one where 10 billion people decide to show up. It was fine. Like, it was a fine GFEST. But like I told Lincoln, and I don't know if I even told you if you were around when I said it, but I'm kind of conned out. I remember you and we were talking about, and I don't know if we had said it on the podcast at all, but you and I thought that one of the silver linings of not having GFEST in 2020 and 2021 was the fact that maybe it could hit the reset button for us. That because we had been talking about for a couple of years, even before COVID came along, about potentially skipping out on a GFEST or 2 for a while, because after about the third or fourth, well, by the time we went to the 4th, which was like GFEST 22, like we started having more fun again. Like for 22 and 23, we had an incredible amount of fun at those 2. And then things just kind of leveled off, if not kind of went down a little bit again. And I understand that a lot of cons that do this, they kind of do, a lot of them do more or less similar things. There's usually some sort of costume parade or contest. There's always a dealer's room. There's panels and stuff. But I think I'm kind of exhausted from all that. I think the immense crowds, exhausted me. But I don't know. Like I went in excited and I walked out kind of meh.
Yeah. And I know with the 2-year break when we went back 2 years ago, it was like, oh, excited. But then towards the end, it was like, I kind of want to start heading back.
It felt like it was another consecutive year of, the same thing. And again, like, I don't know. I mean, I had written an open letter, I don't know how many years ago it was, trying to change some things up. And I provided some ideas as far as how that could be changed up, and even provided some individuals the GFS committee could maybe ask for ideas on changing it up. No one listens to me, and that's the story of my life. But, and like I said, because I've read more about cons and kind of what they provide, and it's like, it's not too different from what most other cons provide. And I think I'm just conned out.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, like I said 2 years ago, if I didn't bring Lincoln, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much. Lincoln, again, despite the fact that we were sick, I think just once again, seeing him experience certain things made it a little bit more fun for me than I would have had he not been with us. I don't know. I'm kind of exhausted and tired of it. The fact too that the Monsterverse panel was really not good. The fact that I couldn't get into 3 of the panels, although hopefully I can catch up with them on Kaiju United, and the sporadic baby crying pettiness of people still just like losing sleep over a movie in Godzilla 98 that's 26 years old. Like, that was bad for me too. And I think if those hadn't happened, I probably would have had a little bit more fun time. But then, very early on from day one, I kind of realized that this isn't helpful. This isn't friendly to someone like me. And I just, it was fine. We've been to better GFEST. Hopefully some of the spacing issues can be addressed in the coming years.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, I'm hoping 2 things change moving forward, though, outside the space issue. One thing I'm hoping is maybe there's something somehow they could do to just do something a little bit different at GFEST than what they typically do year after year. And I understand that some things become a tradition, and that's fine.
Maybe bring back a few things too. Bring
back some things that maybe you did get rid of at one point for a while, or just try something totally different. Experiment. Mm-hmm. There's that. Another thing is, they always claim about the Godzilla community being a family. I've never felt like I was a part of that family. And I know that there are some others that feel the same way. I don't think simply saying, have a good time, be respectful and stuff, like just kind of throwing it out there helps, because it's obviously not working. It would be great if there were actual panels and discussions on just the community and how we need to do better. We need to stop harassment. We need to stop bullying. This particular convention is big enough and well known enough that it would be the perfect place to have that discussion and to get people to do some introspection, but to start bringing some more things to light in hopes that it can be better. Because it has to be better. It needs to be better. And I think every year that has gone by without an actual discussion and conversation is a deeply missed opportunity for this convention to actually, I think, make a serious mark to make the fandom better. And it's not just about coming together. It's about really reminding people that certain things are not tolerated. And that's what I have to say. So with that, thank you so much for watching or listening. We'll be back August 24th discussing the Gamma Rebirth miniseries. And after that, more Netflix miniseries and films to come. Thank you so much for watching or listening. And we will be back in just a little over a month.
All right. With that, we'll see you all next time.